Namaskaram. This is the second part of the series. The first part we covered some introduction to Ramayana. That was last Sunday of last month. This time we will continue to take up the story and look at every single thing in it and try to learn what are the life lessons that we can get from this Ramayana. So as usual we begin with the chants. Om Jai Shri Ram Janaki Kanta Smaranam Siyavar Ramachandra ki Bolo Bharat Mata ki. So I'll just give a quick recap of what we did last time. We began by invoking the divine and we gave the examples of how important it is to learn the concept of Saranagati. And then we talked about developing a spirit of inquiry. And from the Ramayana we gave examples of how a guru should be, ideal guru should be, and how a Sishya should be. What are the ideal traits of man which are detailed in the Ramayana by both Narada and Valmiki, pertaining to Rama as the ideal man. And then we also learned why it's important not to just believe in blindly in propaganda. Importance of being humble, especially as the education advances. It should not lead to a swollen head, but it should make a person more humble. Learning should beget humility. And then finally we ended by saying that Ramayana teaches us how to stay on the path of dharma all the time, every time. So today also we'll begin by invoking the divine. Kausalya Supraja Rama Purva Sandhya Pravartate Uttishta Narashardula Kartavyam Daivamanhikam. I'm sure you all recognize where this comes from. Yes? Everyone says it is from Venkatesha Subrabhatam, but actually the original source is the Ramayana of Valmiki. These two lines actually have been taken from Ramayana. And this forms the first part of the Venkatesha Subrabhatam. We have heard it innumerable times on the radio, on the television, even on coffee ads and whatnot, even as telephone ringtones. But we should think about this for some time. See, if you take Vishnu, he is said to be in sleep all the time. Yoga Nidrai. But then, he is also awake all the time. He is absolutely aware of what is going on. He is looking at the world with 1,000 eyes. This is what the Sahasranama says. So if a person is already awake, why go and awaken him every morning? This is a kind of a paradox. You can awaken only a sleeping person, not a person who is pretending to sleep or one who is actually sleeping, one who is actually awake. So there must be some concept of why people sing the Suprabhatam. This was actually sung by Viswamitra when he takes Rama and Lakshmana before the end of Thataka, which we'll cover later on in this talk today. And this was when he sees these children sleeping in the morning and then he actually wakes them up and he says, "You've got your duties to perform, so please get up." This is what it basically means. But there's much more meaning than this. If you look at the Upanishad, it says Jagrat, Swapna, Shushupti and Turya as 4 states of consciousness. These 4 states of consciousness correspond to full wakefulness, that is Jagrat, Swapna, which is light sleep or dreamy sleep. You can say it is NREM sleep, for example. And then the stage 3, stage 4 sleep is called as Shushupti, where you are not even aware of. It's very hard to awaken you in that state. And then there is a state of complete unawareness of yourself with complete awareness of the Parabrahman. And that is called as Turiya. That is the final state which a man should try to achieve. So these are the conscious states according to our, and this very closely corresponds to what we know in neuroscience today. So actually what we are trying to do is, when we say the Suprabhatam, when we say the morning incantations, we are trying to awaken the divinity within ourselves. This is the concept that we should understand. The real purpose of doing the Suprabhatam is awakening the divinity in us. When you go to sleep, We are senses, we awaken in the morning, and then there is a base part within us, and there is a divine part within us, in all of us. And it is the divine that needs to be brought to the fore all the time. And that is why this, so this is actually an act of not waking up the God, but the God within you. It's not the God outside in the temple, it's the God within you, the divinity within you that is being awakened by saying the Suprabhatam. So that is just side learning that we have from this. So today we'll focus on the Bala Kandam and whatever lessons we can learn from the Bala Kandam. Bala Kandam has got many sub-stories within it. Valmiki's story is there, which is not there in the part of Valmiki Ramayana or Kamba Ramayana, but it is there in other Ramayana versions. Then the origin of Ramayana itself. We'll talk about the city of Ayodhya, birth of Rama, childhood of Rama, schooling of Rama, and then his sojourn with Viswamitra, Thataka's end, Ahalya episode, Seetha Kalyanam, and Parasurama story. This will be the order, and with Parasurama story, the Bala Kandam ends. So that will be the end of the talk today. So first we'll take up Valmiki's story. I'm sure many of you know about this story. He was supposed to have been a forest brigand who used to waylay people who were traveling on through the forest. And he used to rob them. And if they refused to give up their riches, he would even not hesitate in killing them. So he was leading this kind of a life. One day he meets Narada, who comes along the way. And Narada asks, okay, you can take everything that I have. I've got only this veena with me. I don't have anything else with me. If you want, you can take my veena. But before that, I want to know why you're doing all this. So Valmiki says, at that time his name is Ratnakara. And he says, I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing it for my parents. I'm doing it for my wives. And I'm doing it for my children. So do you realize that you're doing some sins? Yes, I know I'm leading a sinful life, but I have no other way. I don't know anything else to do. I don't know how to keep them alive. I can't see them suffering. So he says, you just go back and ask them, I am accruing so much of sins because of all you people. Will you be able to take a part of my sin? His father says no, his mother says no, his wife says no, his children say no. Nobody is willing to partake in the sins which he commits in order to protect them. And that was a real eye-opener for Ratnakara. So he comes back to Narada and says, look, I'm sorry, I asked all of them, nobody is willing to take the responsibility for the misdeeds that I'm doing. And so Narada tells him, you start meditating. If you start meditating, you will start seeing the way. I don't know how to meditate. He says, okay, you just say the name of Rama. That's enough. Just keep saying Rama, 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 Rama. I don't even know. I can't even say that. I have not learned anything. So he says, just say Mara. Mara has got a meaning in Tamil as well as in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, it means death. He has been causing death. So you just say that this is what you have been doing all the time. Keep saying Mara, 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 Mara. In Tamil, it means tree. So you just keep saying that and it becomes Rama. So he doesn't even understand the meaning of that word. Why Rama? What is Rama? Who is Rama? He doesn't know anything. He keeps saying that name and he keeps saying with such intense faith and concentration that he sits in one place and does it, and so ants build a hill around him. There's an ant hill around him. And this, finally he comes out of the ant hill after finishing his prayers, and then that's why he becomes known as Valmiki. Valmiki means one who arises from the ant hill. That's exactly the meaning of the word. So Ratnakara becomes Valmiki, then he becomes a very learned sage. So what is the learning that we have got from this little story here? This story is not there in Valmiki Ramayana. Obviously it is not there in Valmiki Ramayana. It is there only in a version of Ramayana that is called as Kritivasa Ramayana, which is a Bengali version of Ramayana. But it's a very well-known story. In almost all languages, this story is told again and again. Because you have got a learning from this. You are solely responsible for all your deeds. Nobody else will bear the responsibility for your deeds. No one else will bear the cross for you. Even those who enjoy the benefits of your misdeeds will not share the ill effects of these deeds. They will not be ready to share the ill effects. It will be solely and squarely on your shoulders that all that papam will rest. That's what it means. So this is something that we need to understand before we commit misdeeds in the name of helping others or, for the survival of others. The other learning we have from this is that chanting a mantra will have its benefit even when one is unaware of the meaning. So you say there are so many Vishnu Sahasranam, 1,000 names are there. You don't know the meaning of each of those names. But if you keep saying it again and again, it is bound to have some kind of good effect. I always compare this to a doctor prescribing a medicine. Let us say you go to your doctor and the doctor prescribes a particular medicine, chloroquine for example. And the doctor, most of the time the doctors will know what is its basic action, but they may not know up to the molecular level what is the action of the drug. They know that it helps this helps this particular illness. The patient does not even know all that. He doesn't know where it goes, how it gets absorbed, how it gets distributed in the body, what is the pharmacokinetics, what is the pharmacodynamics, what happens at the molecular level. Nothing is known. But the drug will definitely have its effect. So similarly, chanting the name of the Lord, if you understand the meaning and do it well and good, but even if you don't understand the meaning, there is still some purpose in chanting the names because that will have its effect, just like your drug has its salubrious effect, right? So this is the other big learning from this episode is that a transformation is possible. A lot of us think that after a particular time, we cannot change our character. This is how we are made. If you're asked, why are you doing this? This is how I am. I cannot change myself. Transformation is definitely possible. Only thing is you have to make the effort. And that effort has to be combined with some divine intervention. When both these two things happen, a total transformation from a wayside robber to a great Maharishi who could write a big kavyam, that can happen. That kind of transformation is possible. Let us have that kind of hope. And that's a very important message for us from this particular episode. Next, there is the story of how Ramayana started. Valmiki, after he becomes a sage, he becomes very learned. He has got a lot of his sishyas. He goes for a bath to the river Tamasa, which is very close to Ayodhya. And there a hunter comes along, and there are two birds. These are called as cranes. They are called as Krouncha pakshi. The male is called Krouncha, and the female is called as Krounchi. So these two birds are there. They are in courtship. And at that time, the hunter shoots down the male bird. So the female bird starts wailing because of the loss of its partner. If you remember, these birds are monogamous. Monogamous means they get attached only to one partner and they stay true to that partner throughout their lives. So that is very much the characteristic of Rama also. Eka Patni Vratam, we call it. So this is a kind of thing that Valmiki sees. And when he hears that bird cry out because of the loss of its partner, his heart melts. And then he just blurts out. Actually, he doesn't intentionally say it. He just blurts it out. What does he say? Ma nishada pratishtan tomagama sasvamista yat Krouncha mitunad kamaved kamamohitam. When these birds were in love, you killed one of them. And so you shall remain in a state of unrest all through your life. So he gives a curse actually. So this is one of those great kavyas which begins with a very inauspicious thing, a curse. Of course, there are many other interpretations of this particular two lines. Just about these two lines, 20 pages have been written in the commentaries. So, because there are so many interpretations that are possible. But let us just confine ourselves to the actual physical meaning of these words. So this is actually the kind of bird that they killed. It has been identified by the description of Valmiki to be a bird with a copper neck. And so this is identified as what is called as a Saras crane. This crane still lives in the Ran of Kutch. It was there probably all over India, but now it has become confined only to the Ran of Kutch. The male bird has got that coppery head, and that coppery head is what is described by Valmiki. Now, why does Valmiki's heart go to a bird? That is because people in that state of enlightenment believe that it is actually a Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. You must have heard our Prime Minister Modi ji use this word quite often, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. When the whole world was suffering with corona, we were able to supply vaccines to so many countries free of cost. And that is because we believe that the whole world is one. Not just the human beings, all the animals, everything that is put together, everything is one. Everything functions as one unit. So this whole thing is a big family. The whole world is one big family. And that is the reason why if suppose one of my relatives has been hit by an arrow, I would feel very bad. He feels the same kind of pang of sorrow when a bird gets hit by an arrow. Actually, it is natural for a hunter to kill a bird. I mean, that is his way of life. But the particular reason why he became so upset was these two birds were in courtship. And at that time, he killed one of those birds. He had a choice of so many other birds, so many other animals. But he chose to kill that particular animal. And that is why his heart goes out to it. And this is an example of what is called as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The whole world is one family. And the moment he utters that curse, immediately he's shocked. He says, why did I utter such a curse? I mean, I should have been more reasonable. I should have excused him. I should have not probably, said something in the heat of the moment. So he says, he ponders over what he said. This is very important. Many of us will lose our temper, but immediately we should go back and think, why did we lose our temper? What can we do to stop losing our temper next time? Why did we behave like this? What led us to behaving like this? This kind of introspection is necessary. So he becomes thoughtful and he says, why this? But what happened was this particular passage that he said was in an entirely new meter of Sanskrit, which has never been known until then. And then, of course, Brahma appears and tells him that this is a meter in which you should compose the whole Ramayana, etc. He composes the whole Ramayana. We covered it last time. So the learning for us from this is that extreme anguish will make you lose your cool reason. It will arouse temper. This is a reflex action. It cannot be always stopped. Can we stop our knee reflex? Can we stop our biceps reflex? We cannot. It will happen. It's a reflex action. So those things will happen. So it's not that you should get upset by a reflex action. You should always think back about it and see how you can do better next time. You must immediately reflect upon how such a knee-jerk reaction occurred and what can be done to prevent it next time. And that is the most important learning. Right. Big description of Ayodhya in the Bala Kandam. I am bringing this into account because of the state of our cities now. So this is the picture drawn by some imaginative artist about how Ayodhya looked like. There were a lot of buildings, but it was not a concrete jungle because there were a lot of greenery, there were a lot of places where, streets were well watered, he says. That means there is plenty of water that is available, and the water, he says, is very, very sweet water that was available over there. So all the civic amenities, everything is described by Valmiki, just like what it would be in an ideal kind of city. And that is the description that is given. And the words they say is Chitram Ashtapadakaram. That means it is laid out like a game board. That means a very well planned city. See, it's not that buildings come up haphazardly here and there. It's a very well planned out city. And then houses are built with no space unutilized. That's also like our cities. But then space is effectively put to use. There is space for enough of gardens, not just in the city but also around it. All this is described by Valmiki. He says all these things are there in Ayodhya city. And then look at what he says about the king. The king is the Maharashtra Vivardhana. Vivardhana means one who improves. So it is not that the king is satisfied by just collecting the taxes that is due to him and lives a very rich and opulent life, ignoring his people. He is always trying to improve the status of it. What can be done to improve the status of the people? What can be done to improve the status of the city? How can it be made even more livable than what it already is? How can it be maintained well? So that should be the guiding principle for our rulers. Or if our rulers only had this development in mind, I think our country will go to great heights. And I think we are beginning to see these kind of things, change of heart occurring in the rulers of the country today. So there is so much information about what the role of the ruler was. He is not just a figurehead. He is actually involved in the welfare of his people. There is civic planning there. There is infrastructure there. And there are lung spaces there, which we are sorely lacking in our cities today. All these things were there in Ayodhya. So look what we have lost and where we are today. Then about the people of Ayodhya. Of course, here Valmiki just says they were all happy people, etc., etc. But then Kamban's description is unsurpassable here. He says, Kalladu nirpar pirar inmayin, kalvi mutra vallarum illai, avai vallavar allarum illai, ellorum ella perinjelvum idalale illarum illai, udayargalum illai. What it means is, everyone is learned. So there is no big distinction between a very learned person and a person who is a fool. Everyone has got some degree of learning and good degree of learning. Similarly, wealth is also fairly equally distributed. Of course, there are rich people, there are poor people, but then the rich people care for the poor. So this is the kind of dharma that prevailed in those days. So because Ellorum ella perinjilvum idalale, illarum illai. There is nobody without, there is no have-nots. And there are no haves, because everyone is equal in this city. So this is a very beautiful description. This is not a communist kind of equality, an artificially created equality, but it is something that is done very voluntarily by the rich people, by those who have a lot of knowledge. They give it freely to others. Those who have got a lot of money give it freely to others. And that sort of distribution was there. It is not a forced distribution by the state, which is a communist ideal. This is not that kind of equality that is there. It is the equality that is born out of natural justice. And that is very important to remember. And these are all things that we have lost, which was there in the past, which were lost. And if you have Ramarajya, we will be able to go towards these ideals very soon. So learning must not be confined to some in society. It must be equally available to all. Wealth is secondary to education. In the ideal society, there are no haves and have-nots. So that is what it was in Ayodhya. So I brought in this because we have come so far away from the ideal in the present day, and it is important for us to focus on and try to do something to reach that ideal again. Then next, the description is about the birth of Rama. All of you know the story about how he did the big Putra Kameshti Yajna and got the payasam out of it, and then it was distributed to his wife, and the wife became pregnant. But before that, there's something that happens. This man, a very powerful king, a very noble king, doing a lot of good deeds. He has got everything, but he does not have children. He keeps that hurt to himself for a very, very, very long time. Finally, one day, he opens out. Actually, he doesn't open out. It is his wives who ask him, you have got everything, but then you seem to be sad. Why are you sad? You are sad because you have no children. Is that the reason, O king? That's what the wives ask him. So wives ask are the first point of counseling for a great king. Please note this point. The wives intuitively understand that the king is in distress, and they also know this is the reason for his distress. So the wives go and ask him, and then they also suggest that if you ask our Kula Guru, who is Vasishta, he will probably be able to help you. He will probably be able to give you some upayam by which you can have children. So that is when Dasharatha goes and opens it out to Vasishta. And when he goes to Vasishta, Vasishta has a solution. Idumun niganda vannam yana muni idiyatti endi madiram porudha tin tol manna nee varundal. Don't worry, nee varunda vendam. Yezhu bootalam mudalum thangum pudalvarai alikkum. Not just ordinary children. Those children will be able to rule over 7 worlds. That kind of children are possible for you. Teedu ara muyalin ayya Sindai noi theerum என்றால். The last word is very, very important. Last line is very important. Teedu ara muyalin. If you, with a good heart, if you make a sincere effort and do whatever penances that are necessary or yajna that is necessary, Chindai noi theerum. Chintai noi means your mental distress will go away if you do this. So there is a definite faith that matters here. It is not just the act of doing this, it is the faith that you should have in the act. There's no point in just doing a yajna without having any faith in it. The faith is very important. Teedu ara muyalin ayya chindai noi theerum என்றான். This is what Vasishta says too. So what it means is when you are in trouble, don't try to solve all your problems on your own. The life's lesson for you is that you should take counsel, and you should take wise counsel. The wise counsel starts with your wife. It starts with your spouse. It starts with your guru. So these are the first starting points from where you take counseling, right? The other thing is sincere effort under proper guidance will certainly yield fruit. This faith should be there, that it will certainly yield fruit, right? Of course, then they identify that the correct person to do the yajna is Rishyasringa. So he is a great chosen preceptor who will do this work, and he comes and does the Putra Kameshti Yaga, etc. So here, what is important is to choose the right man for the right job. Vasishta is not he is a repository of all knowledge. He could have done the yajna himself. But he says, no, I am not the right person. There is another better person than me. Only a specialist will be able to identify another specialist area of speciality. And that is very important learning for us as doctors also. To another person, every neurosurgeon will look the same. But there are some neurosurgeons who specialize only in vascular surgery. There are some who specialize only in spine surgery, cervical spine, etc. So only a specialist will know who is the right person for the right job. So that is the reason for approaching the right person for the right job. And of course, then the payasam comes out, and then this given, they become pregnant, and they have the 4 children are born. So all that part of the story is well known to all of you. Now, you have heard so many stories about the childhood of Krishna. So many stories about how he stole butter, how he danced on the streets with the boys, and hundreds of such stories. Similarly, you would have heard some other stories about many other gods also. But there is nothing that is mentioned about the growth and childhood of Rama, either in Valmiki Ramayana or in Kamba Ramayana. After they are born, the next thing is they are put to school, and there is just one verse about their school. And then Viswamitra comes and asks for these 2 children. They are already grown up to adolescence then. So everything happens like in a movie, where within a period of a song, a small child like this grows up into a big adult. Within one paragraph, this transition occurs in both Valmiki and Kamba. But then others were not satisfied with this. For example, Tulsidas. He has given a long description about how he went and saw the childhood of Rama and how he enjoyed it. So in that, reading all those things made me think that we should also talk about childhood of Rama. So I composed a poem, and it says, Tatti Tatti Nadai Payilvan Chakravarti Tirumagan. Chakravarti Tirumagan is the name of the Ramayana written by Rajagopalachari, referring to Rama. Chakravarti Tirumagan is the son of the Chakravarti, that is Dasharatha. Nittilam pol pattu viralum taddit taitai endru padittu. The child has got small feet, and the feet have got pearl-like small toes. They are all looking like pearls. And the child comes prancing about in that. Pavala adara maduram vadiya. From his coral lips there is saliva that's coming out. Kadalin maniyum inidu olikka. Kulandai Raman pinju padam. Palagum nadayin alagu kanir. When he comes walking like that with insecure steps, he falls down. So the dust covers his knees. So his mothers get anxious. I am saying mothers very chosenly. It is not just Kausalya. All the 3 are mothers to him. So the mothers become so panicky, they come and lift the child, they wipe the knee with their sari. Taduvit Tayum Talaipal Todaipal, Alugai Nindru Malaranda Kanna Kudiyin Vanapil Tannai Marapal. The whole world stops when she sees the smile of the child. And this is what this poem says. I'll just play it out for you. It is sung by my friend, the late Koviladi Madhva Prasad. Taken. So why I brought this was because I see a lot of mothers, young mothers, who are extremely harried. They are extremely stressed because of the pranks of their children. Childhood is not going to come back. It's going to be there only once. And you have to learn to enjoy it because children will be naughty. There's no point in simply scolding them for it. You have to, of course, make sure that they are disciplined when they reach the right age. But when they are in that playful age, I always tell your mother, you should enjoy your child. And that's exactly what these queens had done. And that's what Dasharatha had done. It also has a metaphysical significance. And what is that? Rama is Vishnu. If he comes and makes a play over here, it is only a reflection of the play that he is staging in the whole world. Because whatever is happening in the world is simply a part of a divine play. What is called as the Deiva Leela. Deiva Leela. The whole thing is, he is just doing it as a sport. And that is the exact concept that we Hindus have. And this is just an encapsulation of that play. And that is the reason why we chose to focus on the childhood games that these children play. Next comes the schooling of Rama. And if you remember your Ramayana by Ramanand Sagar, I'm sure you would have seen this particular scene there. This is the Saraswati Vandana, which created so much of stir and controversy when certain schools introduced it as a part of their curriculum. It is just a method of focusing the attention of children on the goddess of learning. You can call her Saraswati, you can call her by any name you want, but then it is a goddess of learning. And we all believe that learning is holy. And when that is so, there should have been no big objection to having this Saraswati Vandana, which has been there from early Vedic times with us. And therefore, this is how the schooling starts, with the invocation of the divine, just like what we started today. The other thing is, okay, it doesn't matter. You can see that the classrooms are common for both the class. He explains about how the sun is the center of the world, how the planets revolve. So a lot of science is being taught to the children. It should enhance the skills. Those children are made to, fetch firewood, do all those kind of work. Everything they learn. It's not just the academic learning. It's also they become people who are fit to live in the society. And then it should engender social equality, which is what these schools did. And then instill values. That's very, very important. And promote spirituality. So this is the aim of a whole education. You have educationists here who are listening to this, and I hope you will be able to put these things into practice for the benefit of our children. And then, of course, the episode about Viswamitra, which both Kamban and Valmiki described in great detail. Viswamitra comes and asks for the hand of Rama, and he asks only for Rama, but Lakshmana also goes as an accompaniment. And initially the king is very, very worried because he is losing something that he did not have all these days. He was a man who was childless, and now he's got a child, and he doesn't want to risk that child in any manner. So parents often are very cautious about exposing their children to life. They lead a very protected kind of life. This is exactly what the Dasharatha also did. And that is described very well by Kamban. He says, Ennila arundavatton iembiya sol marumattin erivel paindu punnilam perumpuzhayil kanal nuraindal ena. A man has got a big wound in his heart, in his chest, and suppose somebody drives a burning stake through it. How painful it would be. That is exactly how these words sounded to Dasharatha when he says, I am going to take away Rama from you. Unnilaviya tuyaram pidittu unda aaruyir nindru oosalada kannizhandan petrizhandan ena uzhandan kannun tuyaram kalavelon. Kalavelon is Dasharathan, and what he has is, it is like somebody who did not have eyesight, and then through some magical treatment or whatever, he got back his eyesight. And then again he loses his eyesight. How sad that would be for him. A person who did not have eyesight got back the eyesight and then loses it. Kannilan, petru ezhandan, ena uzhandan. Kadun tuyaram. This is the kind of anguish through which he goes through when Viswamitra comes and asks. So what happens is he has become overly attached to his children. So it has clouded his reason. And this is what we also find happening. Most of the time we don't act reasonably because of the attachment that we have to things, people, land, whatever. And that's what makes us behave very irrationally. And that's exactly what happened to Dasharatha. And this story is brought in to warn you that attachment will always cloud your reason. And how do you get out of that? Only by wise counsel. So he turns to Vasishtha, and Vasishtha says, no, look, this is not the way you should look at it. You should look at it as an improvement for your sons. Your sons, by going with Viswamitra, will gain a lot. They'll get a lot of worldly experience. They'll be exposed to the real world. So they'll get a real lot of practical knowledge. And being with a great sage like Viswamitra is also going to be very helpful to them. So you should allow your children to go away. I'm sure anyone who has put their children in hostel for the first time would have felt these pangs of the separation. I'm sure all of you would have felt it when your children went to hostel. And this is exactly what Dasharatha also felt. And then we have to only counsel ourselves because we don't have Vasishthas among us. But then when he takes a wise counsel, he helps us see beyond what is the immediate result. The immediate result is a pang of separation. But the ultimate result is improvement for both Rama and Lakshmana. And that is exactly what we, in our short-term thinking, we often lose our focus on the long term. And only a person who is outside the system will be able to point out that this is in folly. You should be able to look at the long-term benefit and make some short-term sacrifices so as to get long-term benefit. And that's exactly what Vasishtha did. And so they went along with Viswamitra, and he takes them to the forest. And then all along the way, he keeps on telling stories, various stories. Storytelling is not just to pass time. Storytelling is a means of learning. It's a means of focusing on your own behavior. So when you compare the behavior of the people in the story, and storytelling has been one of the ways in which human society has grown over the years. And as we grow into a more and more mature society, we are able to tell better and better stories. And that is exactly what the mechanism of learning through stories, which Viswamitra. So the travel really expands the mind. So this helps us prevent becoming a frog in the well. And that's exactly the reason why Rama and Lakshmana go with Viswamitra. Then they go to the forest where Thataka lives. Thataka is actually she was a very beautiful maiden once upon a time, and he married to a person, and that person was a very evil person, and that person's life was ended by Agastya. So actually, her anger should have been directed only against Agastya. But then she turns her anger because she has no focus of her anger. The anger is not focused on one person. The anger becomes diffuse. It spreads to all the people who are doing yajna, all the rishis, all the sages, to everybody. And finally it becomes a way of life for her. And therefore, once she keeps on doing this, that behavior reinforces again and again. and then she becomes inimical to the whole world, except her own two children, Subahu and Maricha. So we saw a transformation for the good from a dacoit to a sage in the beginning of the story. Now we are seeing the transformation from a beautiful wife to a demoness. And this is also a possible when you are under the wrong influence. And this starts actually first in the mindscape, and only then it becomes a physical reality. First she became evil, so her whole being became evil. She is described as a very fearful kind of Rakshasi. So she comes and disrupts the yajna that the sages are doing over there. When Rama is asked to kill her, then he says, no, I cannot kill her because I cannot kill a woman. It's not the dharma for me to kill a woman. That's what my Vasishtha has taught me. I'm not going to kill a woman. Although she's a Rakshasi, she's a woman. So there is an initial hesitation. So this is a battle between the right and the wrong. And every one of us faces these battles between right and wrong all the time. And we have to learn to see which is right and which is wrong. And then follow the path of rightness. And these are all very relative terms, mind you. So what is right to you may not be right to another person. So that is where the conflict starts arising. So evil doing calls for punishment, irrespective of caste, gender, status, or whatever it is. And that is one of the learning for us. And finally, he fells her with an arrow. And I give this example from Kamban again, because this is the arrow that kills Thataka. And what it does is, it goes through her heart and comes out through the other side. She dies in the process. But the arrow is unaffected. It just goes in and comes out. Like what? He gives an example. What he says is, Pullarku nallor sonna porul ena poitru andre. A man who is unworthy of listening to good things, if you tell him good things, it will go from one ear and come out through the other ear. It will not have any effect on him. So that is exactly the way in which this arrow went through and came out. The arrow did not lose its sharpness, it went ahead. And then he describes a lot about how it went to 7 worlds, etc. But then what is important is this example that he gives of going through one ear, coming out through the other ear, because the person is not worth receiving that kind of knowledge. Then comes a very sort of a troublesome episode, and that is the episode of Ahalya. Very moralistic thing. It is something that people will avoid when you tell Ramayana story to children, because it is more of an adult kind of theme. What really happens is this sage called Gautama is married to Ahalya. He's a fairly elderly person. I won't say old, elderly person. And she's a very young and beautiful woman. He's completely absorbed in his rites, in his yaga and his tapas and all that. So I would think that this wife was ignored for some time. Naturally, biology cannot be beaten. Passions will build up. And then Indra sees the opportunity. He comes in disguise dressed as Gautama himself. And then they have a meeting in their house. Whether Ahalya really knew that this was a man who is other than her own husband, that it is only an impostor, this is something on which many authors are divided. But Kamban and Valmiki very clearly say that she knew that this is not Gautama, but this is an impostor, but still she gave in to his desire. This is what is the description in both Valmiki and Kamban. And then when she's coming out, he's spotted by the sage, and the sage, in a fit of rage, he curses both of them. Kamban says Ahalya became a stone, but Valmiki says she became invisible. She just stayed in that ashram, which became barren, and then she did her repentance tapas, and finally Rama came to rescue her. So this is the kind of story that is said. So this is it involves these nettlesome issues of chastity, adultery, and then of course there is a hope in the end, because if you repent, there is always redemption for you. That is the hopeful message that this story gives. But then the definitions of chastity, adultery will naturally vary over as the society goes along for several centuries. In those days it must have been different. These days it is probably somewhat different. So let us see how much change has occurred in Tamil literature itself. In Tirukural there are 10 kurals on Piran Vilayamai, Piran Il Vilayamai, that is about avoidance of adultery. And it is always said that it is only the man who commits adultery, because in the Tamil psyche, it is not possible for a woman to commit adultery at all. Pagai pavam acham pazhiyana naangum igalavam illirappan kan. Illirappan means one who desires another's wife. From him, hatred, sin, fear and blame will always rest on his shoulders. It will never leave him. So this is the kind of, there are 10 such chorals which talk about man committing adultery, nothing about woman committing adultery at all. So this is what is there. But then, if you come to the 20th century, what does Bharadiyar say? He says, Karpi nilai endru solla vandar, iru katchikkum adu poduvil veipom. If the woman should not be adulterous, the man also should not be adulterous. And that is the change in thinking of the society over a period of time. So we are talking about a society in a different time. So we should always look at these stories in that period of time, and we should not fall into that feminist narrative. Feminist narrative says, look, this lady was wronged by her husband. Okay, it is possible for Gautama, who is a very big sage, very learned person, could have simply pardoned his wife for a transgression. It is quite possible. I mean, it could have happened, but it didn't happen. He acted in the rage of the moment. Again, I said these reflexes sometimes are not controllable. So immediately you blurt out the first thing that comes to your mind. But then he also does that reflection, because what he does afterwards is that he gives a route for redemption, both for Indra as well as for Ahalya. After he has cursed them, he says, okay, I should not have cursed. He feels bad about it, and he says, okay, your redemption will come in this fashion, your redemption will come in this fashion. So he prescribes redemption also. And ultimately, when Rama comes and brings her back to life, they both join again. And this is mentioned both by Valmiki as well as by Kamban, that it is not that they remain separated. They join once again after a period of time, after the period of isolation. That is a kind of repentance that is done. Then they join once again. So that is why I find that the feminist narratives are twisting the story out of context. And if you want to read about the comparative way in which Kamban and Valmiki have treated it, there's a beautiful article in a medical journal called Journal of Psychosexual Health. And this is by psychiatrists from Chennai, a group of psychiatrists from Chennai, who have written The Legend of Ahalya, Midnight Imposter at the Hermitage. It's an article that comes in it's a scientific journal. And in this journal, you find this article. And if you can read this article, you will get more perspectives about this, what I've said just now. So what is the life learning for us from this? It could have been better for Gautama to have pardoned a transgression rather than punish it. Because punishment will not always work. Punishment works only at times. A pardon will work even better. He didn't do it. But as soon as he did it, at least he was good enough to retrospect. And that is why we must always retrospect on our snap decisions. Look back at it. When we decide something in anger, then we can always look back at it and say, why did we do this? Then we may probably go and apologize to the person. We may say, okay, I did it out of anger. I'm sorry. That's what we would have probably said. And that is exactly the thing that it is encouraged by this kind of story. Then we come to the marriage of Seetha and Rama. Rama is brought to Mithila. And Kamban's description is incomparable here. He says, Annalum nokkinan, avalum nokkinal. I'm sure all of you will be familiar with these verses of Kamban. But let us just talk about this particular verse. Marungila nangayum vasail ayyanum urungya irandu udarku uyir ondru ayinar. We always say, there are two bodies but one soul. And that is exactly how Rama and Seetha became. Right? Karungadal Palliyil Kalavi Nengipoy. They were once together in the Parkadal, Karungadal. That is the ocean of milk. They were together as Vishnu and Lakshmi. They got separated and now they are uniting once again. And when after separation, when they are uniting once again, what is the need for words? Pirindavar Kudinal Pesal Vendumo. So this is a very beautiful description by Kamban. So what we learn from this is that true love is one soul in two bodies. And that is what exactly true love is. True love is not just physical, it is metaphysical. And it's also very significant to see what Janaka tells Rama before he breaks the vow. He says, this girl of mine, she is not my own daughter. She came from the earth. I found her. But then, she has come really for my soul. So you see, because she is just a Vadarpu Magal, that is a foster daughter, he still says, she is for my soul. She is not even for my body, she is for my soul. Look at what an exalted position he gives to Seetha. And In those days, the practice was not dowry. Dowry means what the bride's father pays to the bridegroom. In those days, the real thing was what is called as Kanya Shulkam. That is what the bridegroom paid to the bride's father in order to be able to get married. So it is exactly the opposite of dowry. So he says, you may be the son of a very great king, you may have a lot of riches, but I'm not looking at all that. I am only looking at boldness as that is the bounty that I really want. So I've been looking around for such a person, I've not been able to find. I hope I'll be able to find it in you, Rama. Please take the bow and try to string it. That's what he says. So the good qualities like intelligence, dharmic conduct, courage and determination are far more important than wealth. And this comes from the words of the Raja Rishi Janaka. Janaka is not just a king, he is a Raja Rishi. He's a great ascetic, even though he's been living in the palace. So then he breaks the vow, and then finally Rama and Sita get married. And then what he says at the time of marriage is also very important. Janaka, when he gives her in marriage, he says, Iyam Sita Mama Sutta, very famous verse which is said in most marriages also. This is said, this is Sita, my daughter. She joins you in the path of dharma. She is not just your wife. You are going to walk the path together as equals in the path of dharma. And that is why she is getting married to you. She is not getting married to you just for some pleasures or to be your subject and your servant. She is an equal partner with you in the path of dharma. Both of you are going to follow the path of dharma. So take her hand in yours and follow the path of dharma. And what a beautiful way of giving a daughter away to the husband. And that's what Janaka does, because he's a Raja Rishi. So marriage is actually between equal partners, and its purpose is to strengthen each other in following the path of dharma. This is very, very important learning for us in this from the Seetha Kalyanam episode. Then when they're coming back to Ayodhya, they meet Parasurama. Parasurama is actually the 6th avatar of Vishnu, and Rama is the 7th avatar of Vishnu. So it's a meeting of avatars. So it's a kind of a clash that occurs. People may wonder why there is this kind of a story. Parasurama is portrayed in the stories as a person who's very impulsive, a person who doesn't hesitate to cut off the head of his mother when his father orders him. Jamadagni tells Parasurama, cut off he tells all his brothers, none of them are ready to cut off the mother's head. But then Parasurama says he takes the sword and cuts off the head of his mother. So he's a very impulsive kind of person. And so this story is bound to be, and Rama is not that kind of a person. Rama is more mature, even though he's much younger. So it is actually not the story between Parasurama and Rama, not between two avatars of Vishnu. It is a story between volatile impulsiveness and calm reason. It is actually a battle between these two things. And which wins is obviously something that you all know. So the natures of Parasurama and Rama are in our minds. All of us have a Parasurama in our mind, all of us have a Rama in our mind. And there is always constant battle between them, the impulsive action and the cool, reasoned action. And it's always better that the cool reason wins over the impulsiveness. And that is why this is a battle that goes on within us. What is shown in the story is a battle that goes on in our own minds. Which wins is very clear from the tale. So that also is described very well by Kamban, and how he, actually what happens is once he strings that, he gives another bow. He says, I've heard the twang of you're breaking the Shiva's bow. Now I give you the Narayana's bow. You try to string this and see, let us see. So Rama very easily strings it and takes the arrow, and then he says, once I have loaded the arrow, it cannot go a waste. It has to take something. I can't aim at you because you are a great sage, and I cannot aim it at you. What shall I do? So he says, I'm going to give you the efforts that I've gained by doing penance for so many years. That becomes yours. Your arrow takes it from me and gives it back to you. So Rama becomes doubly strong because he also gets the strength of the bows and all the austerities that Parasurama has done, and all that comes to accrue to Rama by this battle. So this is the end of Bala Kandam, and I would like to end by by a small prayer that is said in most Ramayana stories. Apadam artaram dataram sarvasampadam lokabhiramam Sriramam bhuyo bhuyo namamyaham. Means I bow repeatedly to Sri Rama, bhuyo bhuyo, again and again, again and again. I bow to him. One who is most beautiful. he is the Lokabhiramam. The whole world, he is the most beautiful person. Beautiful not just because of his physical beauty, that's also there, but also because of his attitude, because of his behavior. The one who wards off sorrow and gives wealth to his devotees. And this is the common prayer that is said at the end of Ramayana stories. So in order to bring about his beauty, I just brought this picture. Last time I showed you a picture of Vaduvur Ramar. This time I'm showing you a picture of Thillai Valagam Ramar. Thillai Valagam is a place which is in between Pattukottai and Tiruthurai. You can see it's a very small village and a very small temple. Not more than 300 years old, not a very old temple. But it's got a very, very beautiful statue of Rama. Those who have not seen it should make it a point to go and see it over there. In fact, the great Cephalus vein, the short Cephalus vein, all these things can be seen in that statue. It's such a beautiful bronze statue. So having seen that, we are captivated by his beauty. And that makes me ask in one of my poems, Ittanai iniya vadanam eppadi petranai Rama karanam solvai. How did you get such a beautiful face? Please tell me the reason. So we ascribe reasons to his beauty. Why did he get his beauty? Tandayin velvi payasa chuvaya. He's born out of drinking the payasam. That payasam must have been sweet. That sweetness has come onto his face. Annayin amudai unda payana. There are stories about how Kausalya mixed rice, milk and sugar and gave it to the child. Annayin amudai unda payana. Kanigalai kilavi chuvaitu tandada. Sweet fruits of the forest, Shabari was able to taste it, make sure that they are sweet, and then she gave it to Rama. That sweetness is lingered on your face. Vanitai maniyin voli tuli patada. Your beauty is not your own beauty. It is because a little bit of the beauty of Seetha who is standing next to you is reflected on your face. Voli tuli pattada. Vanitai maniyin voli tuli pattada. Tamilaga chirpiyar vaditha punnagaya. Tamilaga chirpiyar vaditha punnagaya. They made him so beautiful. You are looking so beautiful because of the effort of all our Shilpis who had that imagination to do such a beautiful work of art. Padinmar kambaninti juvai tamila. It is because the 10 Alvars and Kamban have described you so beautifully in such beautiful Tamil that your face has become, it has added to all your beauty, existing beauty. And that's why you have become such a beautiful person. And that is what is the meaning of this song. Padinmar kambaninti juvai tamila ittanai iniya vadanam eppadi petranai karanam solva Rama. Namaskaram. We'll continue this in the next month on, I think it's on 25th.
Evening morning Dr. Anand morning 10:30 third Dr. Sutta morning message
எனக்கு ஒன்றும் பிரச்சனை இல்லை. நெக்ஸ்ட்
Bala Kandam பிரமாதமா இதுக்கு மேல கேட்க முடியாதுன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். அவ்வளவு சந்தோஷமா இருந்தது. அந்த எல்லாருமே fortunate to have. Thank you. சார் ஒரு சில சந்தேகங்கள்
கேளுங்க. எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சா சொல்றேன். I don't profess to know everything. தெரிஞ்சா சொல்றேன்.
7 சக்கரங்கள் இருக்குன்னு சொல்றாங்க.
ஆமா.
ஏதாவது ஒரு சக்கரம் வீக்கா இருந்துச்சுன்னா அதுக்குன்னு சில மந்திரங்கள் இருக்குங்களா? அந்த மந்திரங்களை இது பண்ணோம்னா அந்த வீக்கான சக்கரத்தை வந்து ஆக்டிவேட் பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்னு சொல்றாங்க.
பெரியவா சொல்லியிருந்தா அது சரியாக தான் இருக்கும். அது எனக்கு பர்சனல் எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் கிடையாது, எனக்கு அதை பற்றி நாலேஜ் கிடையாது. அதனால் நான் இது சொல்கிறதுக்கு எனக்கு அருகதை கிடையாது. ஆனால் பெரியவா சொல்லியிருந்தால் சரியாக இருக்குங்கிற ஒரு நம்பிக்கை இருக்குது எனக்கு. நம்பிக்கையோடு எது செஞ்சாலும் அதோட எஃபெக்ட் இருக்க தான் செய்யும். அதுதான் என்னுடைய மெசேஜ் டுடே. யூ ஹேவ் டு ஹேவ் கம்ப்ளீட் ஃபெய்த். இதை முதல்ல கூட சொன்னேன். கம்ப்ளீட் ஃபெய்த் இருக்கணுங்கிறது ரொம்ப ரொம்ப முக்கியம். எது செஞ்சாலும் இது நமக்கு பலன் கொடுக்குமா கொடுக்காதான்னு ஒரு டவுட் இருந்ததுன்னா நிச்சயமாக கொடுக்காது. நான் பேரண்ட்கிட்ட கூட சொல்லுவேன், இந்த ஆப்ரேஷன் உனக்கு சக்ஸஸ் ஆகுமா ஆகாதா அப்படின்னு டவுட் இருந்தால் தயவு செஞ்சு என்கிட்ட வராது. நீ நம்பி வா. நம்பி வந்தேன்னா நான் எல்லாருக்கும் ஒரே ஆப்ரேஷன் தான் பண்ணுறேன், அந்த வியாதிக்குள்ள ஆப்ரேஷன் தான் பண்ணுறேன். சிலருக்கு ரொம்ப நல்லா கேட்குறது, சிலருக்கு கேட்க மாட்டேங்கிறது. வாட் இஸ் த மிஸ்ஸிங் ஃபேக்டர்? த மிஸ்ஸிங் ஃபேக்டர் இஸ் ஃபெய்த். இந்த ஃபெய்த் இருந்ததுன்னா டெஃபினட்டாக திங்ஸ் வில் லுக் பெட்டர். ஈவன் இஃப் திங்ஸ் ஆர் பேட் யூ வில் பி ஏபிள் டு டாலரேட் இட். அதனால தான் இந்த ஃபெய்த் வேணுங்கிற சொல்கிறேன்னா, இந்த இப்போ ஆஸ் வி க்ரோ ஆஸ் அ இண்டஸ்ட்ரியலைஸ் சொசைட்டி, த ஃபெய்த் in one another, faith in oneself keeps on diminishing over a period of time. The faith quotient was very high earlier, now the faith quotient is very low. And the faith quotient நம்ம improve பண்ணுறது தான் நம்மளுடைய சாதனையோடைய aim. When we do sadhana, our faith quotient keeps increasing. And that is why a daily kind of ritual, a sadhana, a yoga, all these things help you to do this. பட் இந்த சக்கரங்களை பற்றி அல்லது இதை பற்றி சொல்கிறதுக்கு எனக்கு அருகது கிடையாது, எனக்கு தெரியாது. அதை பற்றி அதை மந்திரங்களை பற்றி என்னால் சொல்ல முடியாது. மந்திரங்களை பற்றி ஒன்று மட்டும் சொல்கிறேன், உங்களுக்கு அது புரியுறதோ புரியலையோ அது சொன்னால் அதுக்கு எஃபெக்ட் இருக்கும் அப்படிங்கிறத எனக்கு ஸ்ட்ராங் நம்பிக்கை இருக்குது. அதுக்கு தான் ஒரு எக்ஸாம்பிள் கொடுத்தேன் அபவுட் த ட்ரக். சம்டைம்ஸ் டாக்டர்ஸ் ப்ரிஸ்கிரைப் ட்ரக் வித்வுட் ஃபுல்லி நோயிங் வாட் இஸ் த மெக்கானிசம் ஆஃப் ஆக்ஷன். இப்போது வாட் இட் டஸ் டு த சைட்டோகோம் P50 அப்படிங்கிற நமக்கு தெரியுமா? ஒரு ட்ரக்கு படித்து வேணால் பார்க்கலாம், இன்டர்நெட்டில் போய் பார்த்துக்கலாம். பட் அது கொடுக்கும்போது நமக்கு தெரியாது, அது அதுக்கப்புறம் தான் தெரியுது, அப்புறம் நம்ம படித்தா தான் தெரியுது. பட் இதை பற்றி ரிசர்ச் பண்ணவங்க சொல்லியிருக்காங்க, அவங்க சொன்னதை நம்ம அப்படியே எடுத்துக்கிறோம். நம்ம டீச்சர்ஸ் அப்படி சொல்லி கொடுத்துருக்காங்க, அதை நம்ம அப்படியே எடுத்துக்கிறோம். பிகாஸ் வி ஹேவ் தட் ஃபெய்த்.
பொருள் இல்லாமல் மந்திரம் சொல்வதற்கும் பொருள் புரிந்து மந்திரம் சொல்வதற்கும் பலன் ஒரே மாதிரி இருக்குங்களா, வித்தியாசமா?
நிச்சயமாக வித்தியாசமாக தான் இருக்கும். ஆனால் பொருள் தெரியாமல் மந்திரம் சொன்னால் அதுக்கு நீங்கள் ஃபெய்த் இல்லாமல் மந்திரம் சொல்கிறதுங்கிறது இன்னும் மோசம். ஃபெய்த்தோட பொருள் தெரியாமல் சொன்னால் கூட அதுக்கு எஃபெக்ட் இருக்கும். பகவான் நாமம் சொன்னாலும் அப்படி தான், ஒரு சகஸ்ரநாமம் சொன்னாலும் அப்படி தான். ஆனால் பொருள் தெரியாமல் பொருள் தெரிஞ்சு சொன்னால் அது இன்னும் கூட ரொம்ப எஃபெக்டிவாக இருக்கும்.